The VP debate questions last night were some of the worst ever. There were questions on Social Security running out of money, questions on the national debt, a question on personal faith. Here's one of my favorites. A question about North Korea launching a preemptive nuke. And the majority of the debate was on Syria and Putin. Actually, that's not fair. It's not the majority. It was the plurality. So of all the different issues, most time was spent on Syria and Vladimir Putin. And there was absolutely nothing on climate change or poverty, healthcare, trade deals. No questions on that. None. So, I mean, stop and think about that. This moderator decided it would make more sense to ask the question, how would you react if North Korea launched a preemptive nuke against the United States? It was more important to ask about that than poverty and the fact that, I don't know, we literally have hundreds of thousands of homeless people in the country. Over 70% of the American people are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, the levels of income inequality are preposterous. Yeah, around the world, too, not just the U.S. We're talking about 62 people with more wealth than the bottom 3.5 billion. That's 50% of the population of the planet. They have less than the top 62. Okay, none of that. How would you react if North Korea launched a preemptive nuke against the U.S.? Here's what's not happening. That's not happening. And the fucking climate change is happening right now. We're seeing the effects. We know how disastrous it's going to be. Scientists are screaming at us about it. We've had 2 debates so far, not a single question about climate change. We're having an increase in natural disasters and the strength of the natural disasters. The sea levels are rising. New Orleans is going bye-bye. You got all these problems. You're going to have wars over water. You're going to have the Middle East be uninhabitable soon. I mean, you want to talk about a refugee crisis? Syria is nothing now. Wait until the entire Middle East has to empty because the temperatures are too hot for human survival on a regular basis. And they're up there asking questions about a preemptive strike from Kim Jong-un. I can't, man. It's unbelievable. And so the framing of the other questions, you know, some of you might hear me say, well, they ask questions about Social Security and whether or not it's insolvent. And you might think, well, that seems like a legitimate question. No, they framed all the questions from a bullshit right-wing perspective that we know is false. So they're talking about, oh, Social Security goes bankrupt. It goes bankrupt very soon. It goes bankrupt. Okay, no, first of all, no, it doesn't. Why are you just taking right-wing talking points? If you do your research, you find out that all this stuff is fear-mongering. So I believe it's fully solvent until the year 2037, and then after the year 2037, it pays out 75% of its benefits or thereabout. So in other words, all you need to do is minor tweaks to keep it solvent as far as the eye can see. But they frame it like, you know, it's going to go bankrupt very soon, and when it goes bankrupt, it's like all the money's gone and they can't pay out anything. Well, that's just not true. Social Security has a surplus as we speak right now. Was that brought up? That wasn't brought up. They're talking about the national debt. I mean, you would think you put some facts in there along with it. Like, okay, yeah, the national debt is one thing. That's the cumulative amount of money that we're in debt. You know, going back to the founding of the country. But, hey, perspective here. The Obama administration has cut the deficit, the annual deficit, massively. So they inherited a $1.4 trillion deficit. Right now, it's about $500 billion. You know, if you want to frame it from that perspective and ask, what are you going to do for deficit reduction? That's one thing. But when you fearmonger about the national debt and your focus is on that over something like poverty, when virtually all economists say, hey, look, if you want to affect poverty and you want to do stimulus, you're going to have to go more into debt. This is Keynesianism 101. I mean, every single thing was framed from a right-wing perspective, and the questions, some of them were just trivial, unimportant questions. Talk to me about your personal faith and how that's affected your governing decisions. Okay, first of all, that shouldn't be a thing because we live in a secular country. So when you ask about personal faith and how that affects your decisions, that's like saying, tell me about how you've contemplated violating the Constitution of the United States of America. That's not a question. Now, look, I get it on the one hand because Mike Pence is sitting there. Mike Pence was most known for his vicious anti-gay bill in Indiana where he wanted to make it legal for businesses to just, you know, discriminate against whoever for religious reasons. So for religious reasons, you hate black people, get out. It's my religion. Well, according to Mike Pence, that's totally cool. Hey, I don't serve gay people. Get the fuck out of my establishment. Well, it's totally cool to Mike Pence. So on the one hand, I get it because he's on stage. But on the other hand, why does everything have to be framed from a right-wing perspective? And why do you have to make it like you're fucking coddling their faith, their belief in mythical beings? This is a VP debate, son. We're talking about over 300 million people in the United States of America affected by their tickets' decisions. And that's what you're asking about? I'm going to say it again. This is why people are flocking to new media. Okay, Secular Talk, one channel in a fucking ocean of channels on YouTube with $0 in our advertising budget. We beat CNN ratings in the middle of the day in the key demographic. Think about that. So they put Robot Boy Wolf Blitzer up there. It's a $1 billion corporation. They got massive amounts in advertising. It's one channel of however many few channels there are on TV. So it's a much higher likelihood people will tune into it. And in the key demographic, which is the money demographic, the one that advertisers like, we beat Wolf Blitzer. We beat CNN in the middle of the day. That's not because I'm so great. That's because they're so shitty. And this is what you get. This is the kind of, moderating you get at the VP debate. And for a while, I thought Siri was hosting the debate. It sounded like Siri. I don't know how many of you watched the debate, but she was a robot humanoid. Everything was like even faker than the politicians. I'm like, how is this happening? It was beyond ridiculous. Look, for whoever's hosting the next debates, well, one of them is Chris Wallace. And he already said, I'm not going to fact check. Oh, God, kill me. But whoever's hosting the other one, I think it's Anderson Cooper. Again, he's not going to do it, but Anderson, I beg you, I plead with you. Ask real questions. Be tough on them. Yes, fact check. But I know that's not going to happen. You want to know why? They wouldn't have picked these guys to be the moderators if that were to happen. It'd be somebody else.